Hell yeah.
All right. Strong and uninformed opinions here. Chris Bailey, Jeff Gulino. A beautiful Arizona day. It's actually a little bit warm, but it's kind of windy.
Yeah, it's nice today. It's like 65.
We always started off with the weather, so
The weather.
Why break tradition?
Weather update. It'll be pretty boring in summertime. It's hot again.
I'm not looking forward to summer at all. I'll be honest with you. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, no one is here.
All right, so we got a big show for you today because there is a lot to talk about. We're in a Trump presidency, and that just means that who the fuck knows what's going to happen on any given day.
Wild ride.
You wake up and it's just like, well, this happened overnight, that happened, this happened. It's all at breakneck speeds. It's hard to even keep track. You could argue that maybe that's on purpose. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going quick.
You bombard people with enough shit and they don't even know too many targets.
Yeah, too much to talk about and think
or
about.
Or get mad about or whatever, you know?
Yeah,
are you in frame on? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, we're gonna do a full episode here, a little debating, and
well, some clients coming in and out because
this is a tat shop. We're back in the tat shop. But so I guess we should start off with. Why don't we start off with?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'll start off with some of the Doge stuff and Elon Musk.
Yes.
So what's your take on Mr. Musk? Do you think he's the evil guy that everyone says he is, or is he literally just a weirdo fucking tech guy?
He's kind of a weirdo. He is a weirdo tech guy, I think. And I don't fully trust him, but I don't.
I definitely, trust is definitely earned, but
I'm not I'm not a fanboy, or I'm not a hater. I'm just kind of
one of the things that really is kind of weird to me is that go back in time.
The fucking door keeps opening. Hold on.
Oh, that's what
it's the wind.
If you go back 5 years, Elon Musk was the savior of the world. He was gonna take us into the new millennium with their electric cars, and he's going to save the environment, all this stuff. And you fast forward to he switched teams or chose a team, and now all of a sudden he's Hitler.
Yeah,
I don't get that part at all. I
don't either, because I don't think. I mean, he's Hitler because of his political points of view. I think to a lot of people, which is it's either this way or that way,
I mean, the polarization is out of control.
Yeah, to me anyway, I don't think he's really much different than the guy that the left loved when he was making electric cars and progressing.
I think he's got like a touch of Asperger's.
I think he really does.
Because truthfully, he doesn't know how to read a room at all. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know exactly but as far as it's kind of like a social disorder where you just don't know how to communicate like a normal.
Yeah.
Not saying that. You don't know how to communicate like in a natural.
So you don't pick up social cues.
Social cues, I think that is what it is, and that
a lot of smart people are like that. A lot of kind of genius level, they're not on their. They don't think the same,
No, and it almost seems like when you hear him talk that his brain is 10 steps down the road from where his mouth is.
Yeah.
And I actually used to like that was when I would watch him talk about things, you could see him actually thinking about an answer. Where especially politicians and stuff, they've just got this bullshit queued up in their head.
Yeah.
But they can just spew this crap, and it's like they don't even need to think about it.
Yeah.
And then after the fact, because it sounded real good, after the fact, you're all like, did that guy even say anything?
Right.
There was no answer to the question, none of it.
Yeah,
so it's what is that about? Well, so what do you think about some of these government cuts? Because I'll tell you exactly where I stand on those things. But
to me, it sounds like a good thing. If all the things they're finding, all the waste and corruption, if all that's real, that's a positive thing, right? To kind of weed that out.
Well, been on this earth for a while. Have you ever thought of our government as not corrupt?
No.
So I don't understand the whole idea of like, this is shocking to anyone. Like,
I don't get it. Yeah.
I've always been on the other side of why aren't we doing anything about it? And now that we are, it's a problem.
Well, someone told me the other day, they're like, they used USAID as an example. They're like, these guys get audited 6 times a year already. Nothing has changed. And I'm like, well, why are they finding all this stuff then?
Because the
Are they
audit,
just ignoring it before?
the people who run the audits on these entities are appointed by the people perpetrating the fraud.
Right.
So what good is that? Like, yeah, you could say, oh, well, we're auditing it. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're auditing it from
Auditing yourself.
Yeah, the guy who's fucking crooked is the one who's telling you to audit.
It's like, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, man. I mean, everything's on the up and up. Well, dude, like, and the one other thing that I don't get, and I've heard this more than one occasion, is like, yeah, well, he only found $40 billion worth of like corruption or like wasted. And it's like, only?
That's a lot,
Like,
right?
that seems like, what the fuck happened to us, dude? We're like, people are like, well, it's not a big deal. It's like, okay.
Well, to me, even 1 billion would be a big deal.
To me, $1,000 is a big deal. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm a normal person.
Yeah.
Like, dude, if anybody's stealing tax dollars, I'm kind of like, well, you should stop. I don't care if it's $10, kind of like.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's $40 billion. And I talked about this on the solo one last night. We haven't even gotten to the big stuff. Like, dude, imagine what the fuck is going to happen when they hit the Pentagon. That's the biggest expense we have as American people, and they haven't even touched that yet.
I'm honestly surprised they are being allowed to, because I kind of think the deep state is the guys in charge, the Pentagon, all that stuff. So I'm a little bit surprised that they are.
Well, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet.
So, I mean, but I don't see that it. I mean, dude, you already see the pushback.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You know what I do think it is that, Trump went in the first time saying, I'm going to drain the swamp and all that garbage, and that didn't really happen. If anything, the swamp maybe got worse.
Right.
I think he went in this time knowing exactly how to drain the swamp.
Yeah, I think he's different now. He kind of knows people now. He knows how it works, and he's going there, and he's just like hitting the ground running for what he wants to do.
Well, we did a podcast a couple months ago where we were talking about his like cabinet members and stuff, and a lot of them I didn't even know. And now you hear some of these guys, and I'm like, oh, I know why he picked that guy.
Yeah,
like Kash Patel, and
I've heard that name. I don't really know who that is.
So he's running. I think it's the FBI now, and dude, the guy's kind of hardcore, dude.
Like how?
Just if you watch some of his like confirmation like stuff. I think it was Adam Schiff. I don't know if you know who that is. The California guy.
Yeah.
Dude, he's a fucking wormy bastard. Like, he just is the definition of a politician. He like dragged, you know how they do political theater and all that. He dragged, like, I think it was January 6th police officers into the confirmation hearing or whatever. And he's all like, and today with us, we have members of the police force that were brutally attacked on January 6th. Look at them and give them an answer of why you allowed the pardon of da-da-da-da-da. And he just keeps looking at Adam Schiff. And Adam Schiff is all like, look at them. And he's all like, no. He's all like, I'm looking at you. Like, dude, and he just refused. He was just all like, that's got nothing to do with why I'm here. Right. So, no.
Not even playing the game, huh?
You got another question? Like, so it's kind of funny to see how hardcore some of these people are. I'll be interested to see what happens with them. So there's also the idea of releasing all the JFK stuff and the Epstein, which the Epstein release was a total bust.
So they did release some. I haven't even really heard about it too much.
The reason you didn't hear about it is because it was completely... it was almost all the stuff you already knew. Right. They had some names on the list that you hadn't heard about. I think allegedly, and when I say the list, this is like just the like his contacts, like in his cell phone or something. So it doesn't mean they did anything wrong. It just means that they did know. Were
associated with
him. Yeah, they knew Epstein enough that Epstein had their phone number and all all that stuff, which
Yeah.
I don't know what. I mean, I don't know what all is going on with that. You said you did a deep dive, so we could get into that a little bit. But like the one that I saw, there two, three that I saw that I had never heard before was Alec Baldwin,
Yeah.
Keira Knightley, which I don't know what's going on with that, and Gwyneth Paltrow. So again, this doesn't mean that they did
That's
anything.
interesting.
It doesn't mean they did anything wrong, but for some reason they're in Epstein's phone.
Yeah.
Um, but you were telling me, and I did find this mildly interesting. That was it, Giselle Maxwell,
Yeah. Giselle, her dad is in Mossad, which is
like currently, or is
or
he dead?
was.
Oh, he's dead.
I don't know, but
Oh,
he
okay.
was in Mossad, which is Israeli CIA.
I would almost say it's a little bit even more hardcore than the CIA.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Like they
They're dialed
also,
in.
yeah, they don't make any like they're the ones in. They go after all the dudes from Munich at the Olympic Games where they killed the Israeli like fucking wrestling team or whatever.
I think so.
They're the ones who like for the next 15 years tracked those guys and went into other countries and just killed them.
Yeah, they're
And
hardcore.
didn't apologize either. They were like, nope, fuck you. Like, I don't give a shit that he's in France. We're going to France and we're going to kill him.
Yeah.
So,
And then recently they didn't they hack it's one of the terrorist groups, Hezbollah, was it? They hacked all their
shit,
cell
I forgot
phones.
the cell phone or beepers.
Beepers.
It was beepers that
somehow
blew up.
they hacked all their electronics and they blew up in their hands and took out the whole. It was like they're no longer a problem.
That, you know what? That's crazy you brought that up because again, dude, everything is happening so fast. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, that was
But did
crazy.
you ever hear about how they did that?
I didn't know how they did it.
Dude, it was like, they knew that Hezbollah was not using cell phones because they could be tracked and stuff. So they knew that they were doing beepers. So Mossad literally created a beeper company knowing
crazy.
that they would be like one of the few that were even making beepers anymore.
Right.
And they somehow promoted these beepers to Hezbollah as like the cheapest option. I don't know, like, or they gave them coupons.
Or the only option.
Well, yeah, but like they gave them coupons, but somehow they convinced them to buy these things. And they all had bombs in them. And then they just waited until they were ready, sent out a signal, and blew them up.
It was so crazy.
Dude, that's insane to think that they thought that far down the road that they were like, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a company, a fake company, and then have them all buy these, and then 2 years later, blow them up.
It's insane.
Like, that's wild that somebody thought that far down the road to like just
they're
go
dialed in, man, and they're hardcore like that.
That's why I would say they're a little bit more hardcore than the CIA, truthfully.
Yeah, but we don't really know, what the CIA is.
But
doing.
I think that's what makes them more hardcore to me is that they don't give
care.
a fuck that The CIA is like hiding in the shadows. Mossad's just like, yeah, that was us. I don't know. I'm more scared of that. Dude.
Yeah.
They're all like, we could be hiding in the wall right now. Fuck off.
That was us. You could be next.
Yeah, totally. Well, so her dad was in the Mossad, and then isn't there some other connection to the CIA with all of that, or?
I think so, but yeah, Mossad and Epstein's are pretty tight, and Epstein goes back even to Iran Contra stuff. Like he was involved in that somehow.
Oh, really?
Which is CIA.
What was his?
I'm not sure. I forgot. I read all this stuff like when the Epstein stuff first came out, so my memory is not great, but it was it's intelligence, between Israel and the CIA, Epstein.
And like from what you gather, from what I've heard, is that they were trying to get information on high up people in society, not even politicians, just celebrities, whoever has like power, right?
Yeah.
They were trying to get dirt on them so that way they could use them like down the road for whatever purposes.
Blackmail. Say like they take Prince Charles or who was it? The prince that got?
Yeah, that was one.
They're like, let's film him with the underage girl. Now we own the royal family. Well, if we need a favor, like, hey man, you got to do this for us or this. So I think they were doing that with all kinds of people.
Fucking diabolical.
Powerful people, and just being like, because that's the worst of the worst if you're caught.
You're done. You're.
So it's like they got you, and I think that's what the whole thing was. And that's why I don't think any of the
It's so fucking weird, dude. Why are so many people into underage?
Yeah, I don't know.
That is the weirdest shit I've
And
ever.
I think we brought that up when we were talking. Is like they might not have been underage if they're 18,
Oh,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, oh, and then they tell them, "Hey, you
Yeah,
were
yeah.
with a 16-year-old,
Right after the fact.
even though you thought it was 18."
Yeah, yeah. Like
And
that's part of the whole scam.
yeah, so it could be,
Well, that's interesting stuff. Well, so back to the whole Doge thing and even the political picks and stuff. So it was heavily redacted, and Pam Bondi, who is now in charge, or she's the Attorney General, she said straight up, "This is unacceptable. Like, this is not what we asked for. You need to release all the files on JFK. You need to release all the stuff
yeah,
on fucking Epstein." And she sent a letter to Kash Patel in charge of the FBI and said, I want this shit now. And Kash Patel wrote back saying, "We're going to send you everything. I don't know who sent you all this redact." Because when all this started coming out, Kash Patel had only been in charge of the FBI for like a week.
Yeah.
And he wrote her a letter back saying, "No problem. We're going to get you everything. And when I find out who was the one who sent you all this redacted shit, they're fired." Because I don't know, dude. Like you hear a lot of stuff coming out of all of these agencies that are not the normal talk.
Yeah.
Which it can be scary, I guess, but I find it more refreshing because I'm sick of the normal talk. Like we were talking about, like the idea of just the idea of like it's always the same like crafted responses that don't answer any fucking questions. Well, I'd rather be a little bit shocked by your answer and at least you answered the question.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I like the answer, but at least you, I don't know, didn't just blow it off and give me some fucking words.
Yeah, instead of the obvious scripted.
Yeah, or just a stupid response.
Yeah, with no information really.
Yeah, I mean, Kamala was the king of that. Like she could talk for 25 minutes and not say a fucking thing. It was crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Like it was honestly a talent, but I don't know if it was a talent, but I also wanted to know what the fuck she was talking about,
Yeah, a lot of them are like that for sure. I think that's how the government just gets corrupt, and people because like we were saying earlier, people know the government is corrupt and wasteful and everyone knows that and accepts that, but they just kind of keep, placating us with, fun answers. And
well, I think a lot of it has to do with, especially like, because I was on my solo when I was talking about this, just in my own personal life. Like I have to deal with the VA all the time for my dad, and this happened just a couple of days ago where the VA set him up for a surgery in October for a feeding tube in his stomach because he went into the hospital. And when my dad gets sick, he's got MS, he can't swallow. And he does what's called aspirating. So like instead of swallowing things, it goes into his lungs.
Oh, damn.
So he can like, if he eats something, especially when he's like not, he gets UTIs all the time. When he gets a UTI, he's going like toxic. So he can't talk, he can't swallow, all this stuff. And like you could give him yogurt and he breathes it in instead of eating it.
Dang.
In which case, he's not eating, and so he doesn't get his nutrition. So long story short, they wanted to give him this feeding tube. And the doctor called me up and literally he said this to me. This is not even a joke. He literally said this. "Why is he here?" And I was all like, "I don't know, doc, you tell me."
Yeah.
And he's all like, "Well, he's supposed to get a feeding tube." And I was all like, "Oh, well, nobody told us that. I didn't know that's what his doctor's appointment was about." And he's all like, "Well, yeah, but here's the thing, like a feeding tube is for somebody who can't eat." And this was ordered in October. So it's been 6 months. What has he been doing since then? I'm all like eating normally and pizza, hamburgers, whatever. And he's all like, "Okay, well then why is he getting a feeding tube?"
Right.
And like I was all like, "I don't know." And so like they were going to cut a hole in his stomach and put a tube in it permanently. And literally the doctor was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to do this."
Wow.
And I was all like, "So you don't think it's appropriate?" He's all like, "No." He's all like, "If he's been eating for the last 6 months, the feeding tube is like what you do when you can't eat."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah." But I mean, that just comes back to like bureaucracy and all this stuff. It's like, well, who the fuck didn't get the memo then?
Right.
And all of a sudden, they're just bringing him in. And I mean, how many examples of that is there? I mean, this is just my dad.
But
My dad's got people
yeah,
looking out for him. What about these people who don't, who just are like floating in the VA? And I only bring up the VA because like that's the best example we have of government run healthcare,
yeah,
because it is government run healthcare. So, I mean, if we all were under government run healthcare, is this how it's going to go? And
yeah.
back,
That's scary.
and back to the corruption. That was my whole point of this rant. But I think a lot of it has to do with, as soon as, because I've watched it happen, dude. As soon as somebody sees, oh, the government's paying for it, you can charge whatever you want.
Yeah,
You can write off all, I mean, you could just fucking just keep racking up the fucking bills. I mean, I'm just going to say it. Banner Thunderbird, I don't give a shit if I get in trouble, is one of the worst I've ever seen with this. There have been times that my dad has gone to the hospital and they know that he's not paying the bill. They know it. And so they do tests that are completely unnecessary. Like the dude has had MS for like 45 years or some crazy. He's had it since Vietnam. And I remember a couple times ago when he was in the hospital, they ran tests to make sure he had MS. It was like, guys, we know he has
yeah.
MS.
And that's a
Yeah,
five
but then you
thousand
look
dollar
at
test or something.
no, it was honestly because it wasn't just one test. We're talking like $25,000 of completely
Damn.
useless stuff, and they know that. Like me as the family, I mean, of course, I kind of complained and bitched at them, but it's because it's like he's not paying for it. Trust me, if he was paying for it, there was no fucking way I was going to let him do that test. Okay,
Oh yeah,
but you know, because no, we don't see the bill. It's just like, yeah, we'll do whatever. And that's how everybody is. Like I said, I did complain though, and I did point out that I even told the doctor, I'm all like, your tax dollars are paying for these useless tests, and that's the truth. If you pay taxes, you're paying for my dad to get tests to find out things we already know.
that's true. Yeah,
And so that's
fact.
just one example of like just absolute waste. Forget corruption; it's just waste, and it's not even like somebody's doing it maliciously. Well, maybe Banner is, but
That's crazy, man.
they're it's a good example of just how like easy it is to have a system that's just completely red tape to the point where you're wasting money instead of the red tape that's supposed to save it. you
Yeah, and
know
they don't even think twice about doing that stuff. It's like, oh, they got government insurance, or government's got it.
yeah.
Okay, well, full battery of everything. They're like,
Yep.
yep, yep.
Just keep going. And I mean, there's been times at the hospital where like they're trying to do stuff to him, and this has got way more to do not with money, but like just my dad's overall comfort. Where I don't know if you've ever done this. Have you ever been to a doctor or the hospital and refused care?
I don't think I have.
Oh, they don't like that. They are not fans, dude. Like if they tell you they want you to do something and you're like, no, they get literally mad at you.
Wow.
It's kind of weird, dude. So, and I mean, you can have whatever reason you want, but you're like going against the doctor's orders or whatever. And dude, they don't like that.
Yeah, you're taking their money from them.
I don't know if it's taking their money from them or if it's like a matter of pride of like,
Maybe both. Yeah.
like, well, I'm the doctor. Who the fuck are you? And it's like, okay, doc, he literally had that test done 4 days ago. You're not doing it again.
Right.
You can go get the test results from the one 4 days ago. And that's more of when I kind of get mad is it's like, okay, dude, you guys don't need to do this. He just did that.
And also, it's keeping your dad there in the hospital for longer and more procedures, and you just want to get him back home. Right?
They get shocked sometimes because I ask them for the bills, and they're like, well, no, don't worry, the VA's picking it up. I'm like, no, that's not why I want to see it.
Right.
I want to see it because I want to see what the fuck you charged for all of this nonsense.
Do they give it to you?
Yeah, they have to. It's kind of funny, actually, dude. And, dude, the amount of money is crazy.
I bet it's ridiculous.
And you know what's even worse is my mom has benefits through the VA, too, because it's all part of a settlement. But she's not allowed to go into the VA system. The VA has to pay for private insurance for her. She goes to the Mayo Clinic. Now, these people, my mom and dad both have MS. They have literally the exact same problems.
Oh, damn.
It's a little bit different. Yeah, I know. It's a whole thing. They met in a doctor's office.
What is that exactly?
It's multiple sclerosis. So, like, it's where you get these lesions on your spine. And depending on where the lesions are on your spine, like it could be at the base or like on your brain stem and shit like that, it makes you lose functions or the functions start to decline and stuff.
So it kind of blocks those nerves or
Yeah,
whatever.
like my dad is actually like I remember even when I was a kid, they were doing like studies on my dad because my dad is like a weird case. I mean, do you remember Richard Pryor?
Yeah.
No, Richard Pryor had MS.
Oh, he
I mean,
did?
from the moment that he kind of said that he had MS, I mean, it was pretty quick until he died. And for some reason, my dad is just like coasting. He's not doing great, and he's never getting better, but he's like on this like insanely slow
How long has he had it?
since Vietnam.
Oh, damn.
Part of his settlement in Vietnam was so he fucking went to Vietnam. He volunteered. My dad was Joe American. He was like, I want to kill commies. Okay, so he volunteered to go to Vietnam, and while he was in basic training in Fort Hood, I think it's in Texas, he was complaining. He was all like, dude, something's not right. And he kept going to the doctor. Well, you're talking about Vietnam when they were sending people to Vietnam or instead of going to jail. Do you know what I mean? So like he kept complaining. And I mean, we're talking like hundreds of times complaining about something is wrong. Like there's something wrong with my eyes. All these things are happening. Well, they sent him to Vietnam anyway. They were just literally like, yeah, you don't want to fight.
Yeah.
And because that's what was happening back then. And so he got there, and Joe American, who wanted to go and kill commies, his job, he was in the air cavalry, and sounds cool. And
Yeah, that does sound cool.
Yeah, no.
Horses in the sky?
Yeah. You want to know what his job was? Dust control. He drove around a water truck that just sprayed the dirt so that way when the helicopters landed, it didn't go all over the. Yeah, I know, kind of lame though. So like, but part of his job is he was in charge of like hearts and minds shit because he had basically like a water truck. The water truck would go into the village where outside of where the base was, and he would turn the water on, and the kids would play in it, and one day he had the kids were in the truck with him, like because they wanted to go for a ride or whatever, and this was like literally part of his job was to do this shit. Because while they were off doing missions, this is what he was supposed to do.
Right.
And then dust the field so when they land, it was fine.
Seems safe, at least.
Well, that's what I mean, though. It's funny because that's how Vietnam worked. The people who were like, fuck yeah, give me a gun. I want to go kill people.
Right.
They put them in
the water
They
truck.
put them in the back. And then the people who didn't want to go, those were the ones they were like, you're going to the front.
Yeah.
So, my dad my dad used his gun once during the Tet Offensive.
Yeah.
One time. He said he shot one bullet the whole time.
Just one bullet?
One bullet the whole time he was in Vietnam. He didn't even know what he was shooting at. He just knew the base was under attack, so he just shot into the dark and had no idea what was even out there, and it was over. Anyway, so he's driving this truck, and while he's driving the truck, he goes blind. He goes blind, and he drives off a cliff.
Oh, my God.
All the fucking kids fly out. They all die. The fucking truck is like a pancake, dude, because it was full of water. So the weight of the truck was massive. And I mean, we've got pictures of the truck. I don't know how he lived.
Wow.
I mean, all the kids.
So there was kids in the truck?
There's like 4 or 5 of them.
Damn.
Yeah. So maybe they changed that policy after my dad. But
why were they in there? He's just giving them a ride around?
Like I said, hearts and minds shit. You know how like soldiers will go out into a neighborhood and hand out candy and shit like that? That was his job, was like the kids would play in the water. And so they were just in the truck because he was driving around because truck.
Right.
Kids want
to
ride around in a truck.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it wasn't a military. I mean, it's a military vehicle, but it's also something civilian people use too. But so he went blind. Kids all died. I don't know how he survived. Well, the military dishonorably discharged him and tried to charge him with manslaughter.
Damn.
So not only was my dad like sick, found out he had MS, the military dishonorably discharged him during Vietnam, which I don't know if you know what that means. That means you will never get a job. You will never
You don't get benefits either, right?
You won't get benefits. You won't get an apartment. No one's going to help you do
it's
anything.
like being a felon or worse.
I would almost say at that time it was worse.
Yeah.
But then they were also trying to charge him with manslaughter. So they were trying to fucking put him in jail.
Wow.
Then they wanted to charge him for the truck, which let's talk about government fucking waste. Their value for that truck was something like close to $1 million.
What?
For a truck that sprayed water.
In the 70s.
In the 70s. Okay. I don't buy that shit for a second. So anyway, this went on for years where my dad was just getting worse, sicker and sicker. And couldn't get a job. So him and my uncle, they started like a gas station together or something like that. I don't know the whole story with that. And then somehow my dad's like best friend is on the New Jersey Supreme Court. And my uncle and my dad's like best friend. And somehow they got a senator involved. And the senator, once he got involved, the military went back and actually had to do a real investigation of what happened. And they saw all that shit from Fort Hood. And they were
All
like,
the times he went to the doctor.
they were all like, oh shit. So they came to my dad and they were like, well, here's our deal, you know, like, and so my dad has like the benefits of like almost like a really high up, like almost like general in like VA benefits, but it's part of a settlement. So he gets a decent amount of money every month, free health care, all that stuff. It's 100% VA, but it's not that he earned those benefits from being in service. It's that that's how the VA handled the settlement.
Yeah, it was
I
that
don't know.
controversy.
Yeah.
Because they probably would have been in trouble even letting him drive that truck if he's going to the doctor so much and having problems.
He should have
like,
never. He should have never went. Like I said, they just
Right.
kept telling him, "You don't want to go to war." They didn't bother to look that he volunteered.
Yeah.
You know, he wanted to go. Like, but that's the whole thing is I forgot what the fucking point was. I'm just rambling on. But anyway, that's how my dad is VA. Right, whatever. That has nothing to do with it. I don't even know why we went off. All right, so
Government corruption.
yeah, corruption. Well, that is a good example of how government just don't work really.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, let's get into other stuff. So we've got the Ukraine. What's your thoughts on that one there?
Well, everyone's talking about the meeting, right?
Did you watch that?
Yeah, I did.
What'd you think?
And I think you mentioned this too, but I thought it started getting squirrely was when that guy asked Zelensky what about his clothing choice.
That was
Because
weird.
that seemed to come out of nowhere.
And dude,
And it was kind of offensive. Like, why aren't you in America? We wear suits, and why aren't you? You know, type of thing.
okay, so here's the weird thing about it. I mean, the first thought I had when I saw Zelensky, this was before Trump said something to him. This was literally as he walked out. I'm all like, "The fuck is he wearing?"
Yeah, he always
Like he
yeah.
looked like a militia member from Michigan.
Well, that's how he always looks.
No, I know.
I
but
think it's by design, just to have him, because he's kind of like he's almost like an actor in a way. He's like, this is my package. I'm coming off the front line to talk to, you know.
I feel like he's got a bit of a Napoleon thing going on there. Where not like
Maybe,
not on any other level other than like he's like got something to prove. Like, and I'm not exactly sure who gives a shit. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I haven't really
even
heard
his
him.
posture in the meeting, it was like
He's a little
he was
aggressive.
real like
Yeah,
almost like ready to jump off the chair.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's
Trump
right.
kind of looks that way too, but I don't know what the point of that was. Like to show that you're a tough leader, and okay, I get it, but
that's right. I think it's all a package. Like, I'm a tough leader, and I'm always wearing fatigues. Like, I'm in war, you know.
well, I'm just gonna say it, dude. That outfit doesn't help your case of like there's Nazis in the Ukraine. Like that was the first thing I thought of when I was all like, dude, you look like a neo-Nazi. Like I'm
And
just gonna say
they have a problem with that.
I know they do. I mean, it's bullshit that's what Putin says is the reason that
Right.
he invaded.
That's
like,
probably not his reason, but that's
I guarantee
could be
you
a
it's
fact.
not his fucking reason. But I don't know. That was the first thing I thought of. But in that meeting, you're right. Like, what the fuck was that question? It was like out of nowhere too.
Yeah, so that kind of was like, that's weird. And then when Vance chimed in, he was immediately aggressive. But
But you got to remember. I think that the reason Vance was immediately aggressive was because Zelensky was the one who was first off, and I did pick this up. You know, when you're doing, like diplomatic stuff like that, you're supposed to address them by their actual position, not by their name. Like nobody called him Voldemort or whatever the fuck his name is. Zelensky's just his last name. Like I can't.
They referred to him as what is he, Prime Minister?
Mr. Prime Minister, Mr.
Yeah,
President,
yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Zelensky straight up was all like, JD, what do you mean?
All right.
And that's when JD like got a little bit shitty with him.
Okay.
After he wasn't really even recognizing him. But I think that was part of that like tough guy thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm the president of the Ukraine.
He
I
does
will
have
talk.
that vibe.
I will talk to you however I want. And it's like, okay, but so that's when it definitely went sour. And I was honestly going to say, if you watch that whole thing, Trump was being very like kind of diplomatic.
He was,
He was
yeah.
just kind of on the level of, and just saying we need to stop this, blah, 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 blah. It's good for both countries. And then there is a distinct point where that all stopped.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I agree. Like he was pretty level headed up until it started going sideways, and then he got
yeah, dude, and I mean, it was like, don't tell us how we feel, like,
yeah.
dude, he just like flipped, and I'm not happy about how all that went down, but I will say that it was kind of interesting and eye opening in, I think, a good way. I mean, you can argue it wasn't, but I liked being able to see how what maybe is going on behind the closed doors, behind all of the stupid political talk.
Yeah,
Like
because
if
they
if
normally
he's
don't.
going in there and talking to people like that and like literally like putting his fucking foot down, I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
Like I don't think anything's going to get done if you're just all nice all the time.
Yeah. And I think they normally don't film that kind of stuff. I don't think. I've
Well,
never seen like
that was where, I mean, there's two ways to go. That's where you could say maybe it was a setup,
I think it kind of
because
was.
why would they do that in public?
Yeah.
And two, that was what JD Vance was mad about, is that's why he said, why are you litigating this in front of the cameras? This is what we're supposed to talk about in there,
Yeah.
not right
Because
here.
my understanding is they had a private meeting, negotiations. They
Mhm.
came up with a kind of a deal. Like Trump's like, give us minerals, we'll continue to support you, whatever that deal is.
Yeah.
Then they got on TV, and it seemed like Zelensky went rogue and was like, I'm not doing ceasefire, I'm not doing any negotiations with Putin.
I mean, it's
And
not
then
like
I
I'm.
think it threw them off. They're like, what? You know?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, it's not like I know anything about negotiation and stuff, but it seems to me that anything that stops the bullets, like it seems to me that like at this point in all of this, like all of the negotiating should be done in a boardroom. Like you're not going to win. I mean, I don't know anyone who thinks that. Do you think that Ukraine could ever win this?
I mean, not without a lot of help.
Okay, but that's World War III, and that's
Yeah.
where I'm with them on that. Like, I have
Yeah.
no interest in any of that, which comes back to what they want to do now, where UK wants to put boots on the ground.
That's World War III.
Well, if because I
Or
agree.
the path to it.
Let's get this clear. Nobody is promoting fucking Putin. The guy's a
Right,
piece of
right.
shit.
No.
The guy invaded a sovereign country. Not okay. But let's think about this rationally. Okay, so the UK and say like France put troops on the ground in Ukraine. That's a deterrent for Russia not to attack. Well, what if they do? I'm pretty sure that triggers Article 9, in which case all NATO countries have to respond to that, and boom, you're in World War. So it's World War III, and it almost seems to me is like the whole thing of the red line of Russia will not allow Ukraine to be part of NATO. Now that's another whole subject. I kind of understand where the Russians are coming from with that, just because
Because they don't want it up right on their border.
it's not even that. Like when the fall of the Soviet Empire happened, we gave them assurances that we would not expand NATO because there was no need to, since the Soviet Union had collapsed. You could argue that Russia, they did a bunch of stuff like invading like Chechnya and all these other things after that agreement. But we just kept adding more and more and more countries to NATO, to the point where now we are right up. NATO is right up again. And you can think of NATO as independent countries, but it's not. NATO as a military pact is one big country.
Yeah.
And I could see, I mean, we lost our shit when they put missiles in Cuba.
Yeah, that's kind of what I compare it to.
Yeah, we were ready to go to war over that. Well, why the fuck is it like any different for them? If we're going to go right up to your doorstep I don't know. I'm not justifying it. Like I said,
If you lay it out like that in common sense, people view that as you being a Putin supporter for some reason.
I don't even
But
know. I
which I
don't
don't
even know what
understand.
the fuck I would support Putin in. I don't give a fuck about Putin. The only thing I know about Putin, well, no, I know stuff about Putin. The only thing that I like about Putin is the dude's got some sick ass watches.
Oh, he
Just
does.
because I'm a watch fan, that well, he's also like the rich. He's technically the richest person in the world. It's not fucking
Putin is.
dude. They can't like tell you how much he has.
Yeah.
But think about it. He runs one of the largest countries in the world, and it's an oligarchy. That dude is worth billions, dude. He basically runs the oil game in Russia.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why they put all the sanctions on Russian oil, because they knew that was going to hit him in the pocket, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. Like that still seems like your favorite word, the neocons, still trying to get us into forever war in a roundabout way. Instead of letting them join NATO, they're going to somehow put NATO. They're not letting them join NATO. They're going to put NATO in Ukraine as like a deep. I don't know. That does not sound like it's going to go well. I almost
No.
call that an escalation as opposed to like stopping the war.
I do too. Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure. It's aggressive move.
you're making things worse, and that was the whole thing with what they were trying to do with the mineral deal. Is what they say is that if America had mineral rights in Ukraine, that means America has interest in Ukraine. Well, that right there is not boots on the ground military, but it is a deterrent for Russia attacking Ukraine, because if you attack Ukraine, you're attacking Americans.
Yeah.
It's not our troops there, but it is a roundabout.
It's a huge deterrent.
It's a deterrent.
Yeah.
But I don't know, dude. That needs to get settled out in a much better way. Otherwise, it's going to get way worse, dude. Like, just truthfully. And then, I mean, I don't know if you saw any of this stuff, but like, did you see Zelensky's like backpedaling after all of that?
No, I've heard. No, I didn't see it.
Because after all of that happened, we cut off all aid to Ukraine.
Yeah.
They're not even the money they were promised. They're not getting it. We also cut off intelligence, which, you know, we're the ones with the satellites. We're the ones who probably feeds all the intelligence to the Ukrainian army, and then they plan their attacks based on that. We pulled all of it. So literally, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, you started seeing Zelensky on like a full-on like apology tour.
Okay.
And did you watch the address?
That makes sense. I started watching it. I didn't watch all of it.
That was, we'll get into that too, but in that address, Trump literally says, I just got a letter from Zelensky saying, and he like read parts of it and stuff, and it basically was like, thank you to you and the American, all those things that they were yelling at in the, you should say thank you, which that's smoke and mirror.
That was weird too.
You know,
I was like,
that's bullshit on our part. Like, you should say thank you. Okay.
yeah,
Fucking like whatever,
stupid.
dude. But like, I mean, I get it. It's for optics and stuff. That's the other part of where maybe it was a little bit scripted and like planned. You should say thank you. Like, that sound, out of everything that was said, that sounded like a go-to like line.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, if he starts arguing back, say, why haven't you
pull
said
up this point?
yeah, why haven't you said thank you to the American people?
And then I think Zelensky said, I have said thank you. And he's like, in this meeting, have you said it?
Yeah,
he's like, well, why?
Well, let me repeat it 5 times. Like, that part was bullshit. But again, back to like Trump's negotiating style. Like, if that was planned, or even if it was, that's the problem. Is like, dude, a lot of what you see Trump do, like, I want to be all like, damn, he's a genius or he's a moron. Like, I'm not sure which one it is, dude. Like,
yeah, totally.
And I mean, all it is like, you got to see how it shakes out, and then you got to be all like, well, did he do that on purpose?
Like, some of his how he floats out like crazy ideas, like, I'm going to buy Canada. I think a lot of that is just like some tactic, like he's just setting the table for,
and it's a crazy
like negotiation.
It's almost, well, but I mean, the very little I know about negotiating is that you are supposed to drop the bomb first and then work from that. You know, like, if you're going to, even if you're going to buy a car, okay, and they're asking for $20,000 or whatever it is, you tell them, well, will you take 12?
Right.
You tell them a crazy.
That's how you set the table, and then we're starting here in ridiculous land, and then we'll get
where I know you're going to fucking say no, but I've started things off so low that we have so much room to get to the price that I actually will be willing to do it at.
Yeah,
and I mean that's a very small example. That's just, I mean that's not negotiating. I just call that almost basic common sense.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean I know people who are like that though, like. Go buy a car. How much is it? Yeah, wrap it up. And it's like, what?
I do that.
What? You just don't want to deal with it?
I don't want to deal with it.
Well, I mean,
the first car I bought was a Scion. And the reason why I bought it was like, this is a no hassle. Like, this is
the sticker
brand new.
Okay, so I had a Scion when they first came out too. There was no wiggle room.
There was like,
they told you this is how much
loaded.
It yeah.
And we don't even have the power to negotiate. Right. I was like, I want that.
Yeah, no. Well, that one, because I went through the same thing. I totally know what you're talking about, but I'm talking about like in general.
The car I bought now, I was I literally brought my truck in with a blown engine to Ford. I didn't know it had a blown engine, but they told me, they're like, it's totaled. It's like, you got a blown engine. I'm like, well, what? Can you have a car you can sell me? And they're probably just like, oh yeah.
You were playing hardball, man.
So they gave me that. They're like, we have this. It was one car, that Ford Flex, and I'm like,
well, okay. You came up on that. I love that car.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Well, I don't know, but like, I just feel like back to the real quick with the car. I literally one time went car shopping with my sister, and she wanted this car. She was going to buy this car no matter what, and I managed to get the fucking dealership to take wheels off of another car and put them on that car, because I told them there was no way we were leaving with those shitty rims on that car.
Yeah.
She needs some actual rims on it, not just some hubcaps.
I'm taking you next time I buy a car then.
Dude, so they gave her the wheels off of another car, which they told me they weren't supposed to do.
Right.
And then I told her, and then I said something about like, yeah, the radio in this thing kind of sucks. She's totally going to have to go and take it to go get some new 6x9s and all that stuff. And they were like, well, we can't do that. And I was all like, yeah, but I mean, I'm sure you got some petty cash somewhere that you can maybe throw in. And he's all like, we can't give you cash. And we left there and they gave her $600,
wow.
Wheels off of a different car. And I think like $3 or $4 grand off of the sticker price.
Nice.
Like, because, dude, it was, and the other thing, my wife did this too.
But when you negotiate like that, you're there all day, because that's not easy.
You also got to catch them at the right time.
Yeah.
Like if the dealership is busy and stuff like that, and you're trying to do that shit, they'll literally just be like, well, here's my card, fuck off.
Yeah.
You know, but like my wife went and got a car one time where she saw an ad for, I think she has an Accord. I don't even know what kind of car she had. Altima, maybe? Whatever.
Your wife's car?
Yeah.
You don't know what it is?
No. It's gray. But she went to go, like, this ad, you know, saying, we have these cars for this price. She went there, and they're like, oh, we don't have any more of those. And she was all like, oh, okay, well, I'm leaving. And, dude, they, like, chased her down. And they were all like, well, we do have other ones in the back. They're just not that price. And she's all like, well, how much are they? And it was, like, $6-7 grand more. And she was like, well, no, I came for this price.
Yeah.
And dude, they must have just not had their quota of cars sold. Dude, they ended up giving her like a souped up model where those other ones were like base. They gave her like this souped up model for like fucking the exact same price as the base one. And her car, like, you know how most people are underwater when you buy a car?
Yeah.
Dude, I've never even seen anything like this. Her car was worth way more than what she owed.
Dang.
Like, and I've never seen that before ever. Dude.
Yeah, from a dealership.
Yeah, because it was like a $10,000 difference off of what she paid and what the sticker was.
Crazy.
I told her, say what you said. I was like, you're coming with me next time.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna fucking deal with these people. Like, I don't know how you did this.
I hate that. I hate dealing with them.
Yeah. All right. Well, talking about cars, I guess that could bring us back to, because I don't have an answer to Ukraine. I don't know what the fuck we should do with that.
Yeah, I think they should just figure out how to stop it, obviously, before it escalates.
I think that's very fucking escalating.
That seems like a no-brainer, but it seems like a lot of people are like, no, keep going.
Well, did you see that in the presidential address? Okay, so the only thing that the Democrats stood up and cheered for was when he was talking about Ukraine. and like they didn't cheer for anything else. Okay. And they're all clapping and stuff like that. And Trump said something about like, do you want it to keep going on for another 5 years? And Elizabeth Warren is just, it's almost like she didn't hear him, or she's just clapping and clapping. And Trump just goes, oh, yeah, Pocahontas wants it to keep going.
Oh,
like in front of everybody, dude. And she's still just clapping and like, and he's all like, yeah, we're trying to stop.
Why does he call her that? I never.
Oh, because she's the one who said that she's clearly an old white lady.
Yeah.
I mean, she maybe has some Native American in
Oh,
her,
she made
but
that
she
claim.
was one of the. She was. You don't remember that?
Now,
she was the one who was all like, "I'm like part Chippewa or some shit like that," and everyone's all like, "What?"
So Trump calls her Pocahontas.
So he calls her Pocahontas, dude. He's been doing it for years, dude.
That's fucking hilarious.
Dude, whether you hate him or not, he drops some pretty funny shit sometimes, dude. He's a very sarcastic motherfucker, which I enjoy that type of humor. So I don't know if it's always funny when you've got like people's lives and our government and all that involved, but talking shit to Elizabeth Warren, I don't care. Go ahead, that's fucking fine by me. Well, so talking about the cars, let's get into the one other thing. And I mean, this is going to go a little bit long, but we got a few more minutes. Tariffs. So you said you don't know much about the tariffs, right?
I know what they are, and I know Trump wants to impose them.
Okay.
That's about it.
Well, so that's one of the things, because I follow this shit pretty closely. The thing is that, and I think we may have talked about this before, but you got to understand, like, everyone talks about free trade. When they talk about free trade, they want us to have free, like, they only want it on our end. Don't charge us anything to sell our shit in America. We're the largest consumer base in the world, because we all know this. We buy shit we don't need constantly, all the time.
Yeah.
I told you that before too. Like, I think that most wars are actually kind of avoidable just because the status quo is what they want. They want to be able to go in there. Like, Iraq wasn't about oil. Iraq was, oh yeah, but now we can sell you toilet paper every week.
Yeah.
We want our products in a country. We invade a country and then all of a sudden there's a KFC there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's about business, and like they want a new consumer base and stuff like that. Well, unfriendly countries don't allow our shit in there. So back to the idea of a trade war. We're not allowed to sell our cars in Europe.
Oh, we can't?
You're allowed to sell like a couple of them. But like, if you try to, like,
but Chevy can't ship over a truckload and be like, buy our shit.
I think they can in some of the countries, but we get tariffed. So that truck, well, first off, you can't sell trucks in Europe. They won't sell because they're just a different culture.
Right. Smart cars, maybe.
Yeah, smart. Well, not even smart. Just more compact cars.
Well, that's what a smart car is like. That. Have you seen them?
Oh, you meant actual smart car?
Yeah, it's like a two-seater.
For some reason, I was thinking you meant like fucking EVs. And stuff. No, they are. They're fucking roller skates, dude. They're weird looking. I would hate to be in one of those cars.
I don't even know if I could fit in one.
Dude, what happens in an accident? You are fucking dead, dude. I think golf carts have more protection. But anyway, but yeah, they tariff. Okay, so if you buy anything from Europe, like say, once again, I'm into watches and stuff. So there's times where I buy European watch companies, and they don't have distributors in the U.S. Well, they have a thing called a VAT tax, which is the European Union has a tax on anything being sold into America from the UK or from the European Union.
That you pay?
That the customer pays.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's 20%, something like that. It's not little.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
That same thing, that's why people will actually travel to Europe to buy things. And then come like a shopping trip, like richer people and stuff. They'll go there to go and buy their Rolex.
To avoid that
tax. Okay. But we don't do anything like that. If somebody buys in Europe something from America, there is no VAT tax. There is no tax to ship it over to. That's why
that tax goes to the government from the
Well,
Europe?
we'll get into that too. Yeah, the VAT tax goes directly to the European Union.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
But that's because they have an economic union, the euro and all that stuff. It's a little different.
America's would go to the Treasury or something?
It would go to our what's our revenue. So just like how we raise money through taxes, we would raise money through taxes. Like that's why they're talking about, instead of the Internal Revenue Service, starting an ERS, the External Revenue Service, where it's the money that comes in from other countries doing business in America.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why, like, do you remember when we were kids, like seeing a Mercedes was kind of like, oh, damn, a Mercedes. Or like, God forbid you saw a Porsche or anything like that. It was like, oh,
pretty
shit,
rare.
that's crazy. Well, dude, I mean, I on my drive home now, I'm going to see 15 Mercedes. They're almost just commonplace. But the reason that is because they're allowed to ship all their shit to the largest consumer base in the world, America. People who spend more money than they should on luxury goods that they probably can't even fucking afford. They're allowed to ship that shit all here and not pay any tax or any tariff on it.
Yeah, because we've never done that, huh?
We have.
Like the VAT tax? We have before.
That's why you didn't see it like in the 80s. Is because they weren't just allowed to ship that shit over. A European car here used to be special and expensive.
Yeah.
Mercedes now, I mean, unless you're getting S-Class and all the really nice ones, a Mercedes is not exactly the most baller thing in the world anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Some Mercedes, I think you could get Mercedes for like 45 grand, some of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The little ones and shit.
Yeah.
The same thing with BMW. BMW, when I was a kid, dude, I was like, damn, dude, you got a BMW?
Maybe now because those companies now are making cheaper vehicles that they can push here because they don't have that tax that like they used to. Like it wouldn't be affordable for them to make a cheap car and not get a lot of money and pay the tax.
Exactly.
Be like, we're just going to send them like high end.
So what happens is that Trump is not imposing taxes, because you hear that a lot, imposing taxes. He's putting in what's called reciprocal tariffs. So if you're charging us 20% to send our shit into your country, we're charging you 20%. So that should technically be a wash.
Right.
Because 20% and 20%, it's Xing each other out.
Yeah.
The problem is that there's such a huge trade imbalance. Like, we send so little shit over there, and they send so much shit over here, that it isn't an equal thing. Because if we put a tariff on Europe, even though they have one on us, that's going to hit Europe way worse, because we're their number one customer. And now all of a sudden, once the price goes up for that Mercedes, they're going to sell less of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the idea of the tariffs is like, okay, well, we can go down this road of, I tariff you, you tariff me, or here's what your options are. We just drop the tariffs. You don't tariff me, I don't tariff you. You can send all the shit you want into America and we'll buy all of it. But I'm going to send all my shit over there and you guys can buy that stuff too, And I mean, you hear about that all the time with, like, in Europe, like, you talk to like an Italian or a German and they're like all stoked about American products because they can't get it. It's like when a McDonald's opens up in Europe, it's like, oh, McDonald's.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's because it's so hard to get that shit over there, okay? So the idea of reciprocal makes complete sense to me. And one of the things that I don't understand, and it kind of annoys the fuck out of me, is the idea of like, okay, so when you guys put these tariffs on us, it's national security, national pride, it's necessary. We're trying to keep our consumer base, and not ruin our economy because we want German products to be bought by Germans. But then when we do it, we're evil and trying to fuck up everybody's shit and putting people out of work. And it's like, oh, that makes no sense to me. It's complete double talk. Like, so it's that whole what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The goal here is actually zero tariffs. but that
across the board.
requires you to drop yours.
Yeah,
which if you don't drop yours, then we're not dropping ours, and that's where it all goes. So this shit with like between us and Canada. First off, I think that's a lot of political theater because Trudeau, the guy who's in charge of Canada, he literally is stepping down, and they are electing a new person in like 3 days.
Is it election time or he's just done?
He's stepping down and it's election time.
Oh, okay.
And all the people in Canada, like it's already been projected that it's not going to be the same kind of government because the people of Canada are fucking sick of their like socialist left government. Like
he was pretty radical.
Well, do you remember the main one, which I think is ridiculous, is the idea of like, do you remember when the truckers went on strike in Canada? He froze all their bank accounts.
Yeah.
Like, dude, can you imagine?
Like the government going into your account and just freezing
They're basically all like, hey,
for protesting?
If you're not going to work, you aren't allowed to buy food. Like, what? You know, like that's
like uber authoritarian.
Yeah. You know, so like the other thing is like when we talk about like Trump, dude, I don't like this, but it is still, I don't care if things are bad because I like irreverent humor. But the fact that Trump keeps calling Trudeau Governor Trudeau instead of, because he's all like, you're going to be our 51st state. So he won't call him the prime minister. He just calls him Governor Trudeau.
That's hilarious.
This is a little bit funny, dude. Like, I don't agree with it, but it's a little funny. But, so that's what the whole tariff thing. And what's weird is you haven't heard anything from Mexico. I think something's in the works with Mexico because Mexico's another whole story altogether.
Didn't he try something the first time he was Trump?
They did it. They did like NAFTA 2.0.
Right.
Because NAFTA, he said, was one of the worst deals ever, which it kind of was not great. Because what it did was it made it so American companies could go into, this is where Mexico's a little different. American companies can go into Mexico, produce goods, taking advantage of the fact that Mexican labor is dirt cheap.
Yeah.
So they can get around minimum wage in the States, go down there, fucking basically. And
probably tax reasons too, yeah.
Well, yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
Go down there and do the exact same thing with much, much cheaper labor so they make way, way more money. Throw that shit on a truck and just run it across the border into America and sell it. No taxes, no tariffs, no nothing. It's like a loophole that they exploited because the idea was supposed to be, you know, like trade back and forth would be free. Well, that's the other thing of where like Trump's always like, they're ripping us off. It's only free for you to come into our country. It's not free for us to go into their country.
Right.
That's where the problem is, okay? And so by putting the tariffs on, you're basically doing the idea of like, well, let's make this fair, drop all of the tariffs. We can all trade together and just make money. Or tariffs stay, you're going to pay more and you're going to lose your sales in the United States because your products are going to cost more to consumers.
They're not saying you're going to pay more. It's like you're going to pay the same that we're paying.
Yes, they're not. That's the thing, is it's reciprocal. So like in a trade war, when somebody usually puts like 25% tariffs on somebody, the other side's all like, well, I'm going to put 25% on you. And then it just keeps, well, then I'm going to put 10 on you. And then I'm going to put 10 on you. It just keeps going back and forth. Well, Trump has just basically said that that's how this is going to go. Like 25% tariffs is what you're charging us. We're going to charge you 25% share of the tariffs. You can come back the next day and say 10%. Cool. 10%.
Right.
Like he's basically said, I'm not playing this game of we could just keep raising it on each other. That is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So if you raise your tariffs, just know tomorrow ours will be exactly the same. It won't be an announcement. That's just how it's going to go.
Right.
And the thing is that it is going to raise prices for American consumers. I mean, that's one thing I hate about the Trump administration. They should be admitting that.
Yeah.
It will raise prices, but it will also force people to buy stuff that's maybe made from America or in America, or buy stuff from countries that do have free trade with us. Okay, because not every country is going to tariff us, and we're not going to tariff them. Okay, so if that's the case, then you're going to have like people buying more goods from India instead of China. Okay, that's fine. Or what's going to happen is China is going to be all like, we can't afford this because it's going to put all these people in China out of work, seeing as how nobody's buying our shit in America, which is where we sell most of our shit. And China's biggest problem is like insurrection amongst its own people. You took a very poor population and gave them middle class life, and then you're going to take it away from them.
Right.
You're talking Tiananmen Square times a million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're not going. I mean, they could blame the U.S., but so what? They're going to blame their government for that.
Yeah.
So what'll happen is China will either keep the tariffs and then move those factories to America and then have to employ Americans. That doesn't seem like a bad idea either. Or they're going to drop their tariffs and fucking we drop ours and then actual free trade.
It seems fair.
It seems fair, and it doesn't
Right.
seem like I do think, like I said, there's going to be some pain there because right now there may not be companies producing brooms in the U.S.
Maybe the reason why we haven't had tariffs is just to give the consumers cheap products.
No, well, that's the selling point to you and me.
Right.
Is we get to buy all this shit for cheap. The conspiracy theory aspect of it would be this was part of the plan for globalization for the globalists. Is that's why you dropped the tariffs is because I don't know if we ever talked about this, but the whole point is that there was the equity imbalance, which that's where you feed on people's heartstrings too. America was so fucking rich and the rest of the world was so fucking poor. Well, the goal was to get America a little less rich and make the other parts of the world, like get everybody on an equal. Like you talk about, like if we're trying to get on a world currency, the only way that you're going to get on a world currency is that if we're all kind of at the same level of like wealth or not wealth or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can't have like these super wealthy ass Americans and Europeans and then people in like India and China and Africa way poor. They're not going to get on board with like a globalization like plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the only thing that there was to do, I mean, look at what's happening. It's kind of happening. The only thing that you could do was kick down the Americans. That's why you see such a wealth gap. You know, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Well, the poor are the majority of the people. So that's where you need them to come down. The rich can stay rich because it's not their minority.
Yeah.
But we need to be on more of an equal playing field. And you can see that just, China. I think 30, 40 years ago, I mean, when I was a kid, there's starving kids in China. I don't know if that's even a saying anymore. I'm sure there are starving kids in China, but it's not like how
it's not super prevalent.
Well, China's had the most famines out of any country in history. Like where millions of people have died from just not enough food.
Damn.
One of them was actually because of communism. So that's, but whatever. All right. Well, so that's the nuts and bolts of tariffs. Seems mildly fair to me.
I didn't realize that we were getting imposed with tariffs.
Yes. From almost every country.
Yeah, because
that's the thing. You hear this narrative of how it's almost like not normal.
That side needs to be explained more. Because
they don't want to explain it.
Yeah.
Why would they explain it? It's easier to just be like Trump bad.
Well, I mean, even this administration should explain that. They probably have.
And so back to the globalization plan. That's one thing I would argue. Like, there's going to be short-term pain with everything that they're doing, but you're starting to see assets depreciate. Okay, now that's what I mean by short-term pain. People who own houses. People who own stocks, 401ks and stuff, you've done nothing but watch that shit go through the roof. It's done nothing but go in a straight line up. Unfortunately, that's how most people view their wealth. My 401k looks pretty good. My house value keeps going up. So if I add those two together, I'm worth a decent amount of money. So that affects spending. Like what's spending a couple $100 on a tattoo if I go and look at my overall wealth and it's like, oh, well, I've got like $700,000 worth of equity in a house and, however much in a 401k. So like you'll go out to dinner more just thinking that you're rich. Well, the
You
problem
got that
is
safety net there,
the
which
problem
might
is
not be
those
there,
things those things are the ones that are going to come down. So house prices, which is good for younger people because the houses are too expensive for them to fucking be able to afford.
Yeah.
So housing prices will probably come down. But when they come down, you feel less rich. So you will not
Yeah.
be out going out to eat 3-4 times a week. You're going to go out to eat 1 time a week. Well, then that affects the fucking. This is the true trickle down economy.
Yeah.
That
Domino
affects
effect.
the fucking servers and all that stuff. So that is a real fucking thing. But you're already seeing it. Stock market's down. Cryptocurrency's down. Price of oil is down. I haven't seen housing prices go down just yet, but all of these asset classes, like the things that people own, are going down in value. And to me, that's a sign of deflation. So the idea that you hear this a lot where, like, well, things can't get cheaper once they get expensive, that's not true.
Right.
As soon as people stop buying shit, it will get cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw it with McDonald's already. You saw it with Subway, just announced it. Subway must not be selling sandwiches hand over fist because they're going back to, I don't think it's $5,
Are they really?
but I think they're going back to $6 footlongs.
Yeah, because I went there like a month ago, and
I remember you complaining about it.
And it was like $15.
I know.
I was like, just one sub? And they're like, it's 50. I was like, holy shit.
And this is that meat that I can't even necessarily identify.
Right.
Like, and you're charging me $15. Dude, sandwiches.
So I haven't been back since because they're not that great of a
That's
sandwich.
what I'm
plate.
saying.
I was like,
but see, that comes back to the idea of like trade. Okay, if I am presented with 2 products that cost exactly the same, okay, one is made in China and one is made in Japan. Which one are you going to buy?
Japan, right?
100%. Why would you buy the? I mean, it's not like, and this is not racism. It's not. We all know Chinese stuff is just not made very well.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the thing is like they'd say, well, this is going to raise prices on consumers. Yes, it is, but it's also going to create where nobody's buying that crap anymore.
Yeah.
Like if I have to pay the same price for the piece of shit or the one that's good, I'm going to pick the one that's good. It's the same price.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know. The trade war type shit and the tariff shit, I think, is because in the long run, you got to see what the benefit of all that is. Like, dude, if they switch all that around to where we're buying all American stuff and there's way more American jobs that aren't MIC jobs, that's only good for us.
And yeah, because America too probably has been lackadaisical about manufacturing things because we're just getting everything from China or India.
You know what it is?
But if that kind of changes that dynamic, there'll be like an entrepreneurial like opportunity here.
When everybody talks about like it's always the big stuff, cars and planes. Well, of course that's important because it is so expensive. But what about manufacturing? Just like I used earlier, a broom factory.
Yeah.
Like that's not an exciting job or anything like that, but it's also, and see, this is the other thing.
And it makes more sense to buy it stuff like that here than have it shipped across an entire ocean.
This is the other part
like that
people,
doesn't make sense.
This is the other part that nobody talks about when it comes to this whole inflation talk. Is one of the biggest parts of inflation right now is the cost of shipping goods. I have a friend who works in like actual like importing, exporting and stuff. And dude, over the since COVID, the price of shipping a container on one of those big container ships is like quadrupled.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude, it was honestly like, and I thought this was crazy. It was only like maybe $3,000-$4,000 to ship one of those crates. Okay. It's now like 15. Okay. So that's why things have gotten more expensive because it just costs more to get the shit over here. And we're still buying the shit from overseas instead of making it here.
And you would think people on that side of it would be down for bringing industry here.
Which
because of that reason, like that's like massively wasteful.
But that's when you look at when these guys are arguing about this shit. It's like, well, why? Why are you against? Like that just makes me think like, what's your agenda? Like, why would you be against this?
Yeah,
you could be against the way Trump's trying to do it, but it also makes sense to me the way Trump's trying to do it. Like that is like a negotiation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's one that I mean.
I
That's
think people don't really look at it like as a like really take it apart, unpack it, and look at all the moving pieces, like you just explained. Like with tariffs and all that. I think people are just like fed a narrative, and they're like, yeah, and that's all.
but that's also part of like just the fucking unfortunate nature of Americans.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
dude, don't bother to look into it at all. It's just like flashes of TikToks and things. I mean, dude, it's easy to see why you can hate Trump specifically if all you're seeing is 10-second clips of everything he says. Because trust me, if Trump talks for 90 minutes like he did the other night, you can easily find at least 2 to 5 minutes worth of shit that you can clip apart and make him look horrible.
yeah. They do that with everyone. They can do that with
Yeah.
anyone.
Well, what about the very fine people thing from back in Trump's first term? Like, you remember that, right?
Very fine people.
When Trump said something, there was that neo-Nazi rally at the
Oh, right.
at the statue thing, and he said there was very fine people on both sides, and they took that clip and ran with it, and said that Trump was saying there was very fine people and the Nazis and all this stuff. That is not at all what he said. They took that little clip and excluded all the rest of it. He was talking about the protest of tearing down the statues. And he said that there were very fine people on both sides of that argument. They just took the very fine people. And then the Nazis showed up later on that night. And so they made it sound like Trump was saying there was very fine people in the Nazis. And that had nothing to do with what he was talking about.
Yeah, I hate that. That's crazy. They just.
You didn't know that one?
I heard that one, but I didn't know the full story.
He was literally just talking about the fact that there was a protest about tearing down statues, and that both sides of that argument had very fine people representing it.
Right. I didn't know that. No.
It's a wildly rational statement, to be honest with you.
Like, it's not even a controversial statement.
It's not racist. It's not anything, dude. So, like, what is the fucking... Back to the statues, I don't really think it... My idea with the statues is like, you really put up statues of the losers?
Yeah.
Like, that's my whole thing with the statues. Is like, you fucking lost. Why do you get a statue? Like, we're going to fucking... That's another whole argument, but it's like, yeah, okay. We'll put up the world's biggest losers and give them statues. It's like, why is that a fucking thing? But anyway, all right. So that's tariffs. Real quick, Israel. At least the bombs aren't dropping no more.
Yeah, they're not in the news too much.
I don't know what the solution is, but at least the war's kind of at least on hold. Israel has absolutely said they will not accept Hamas in charge, and Hamas is still in charge. Of what, I don't know. I mean, just rubble.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it because I don't like where are all the people living if it's just rubble.
It's the world's largest refugee camp.
There's just tents and
they're living in tents, humanitarian aid.
Millions.
Well, but this is the other thing is I saw a really good comparison. They compared Gaza to Tokyo after World War II. They said it's almost a similar exact situation as far as like the entire place is obliterated. It all has to be rebuilt, all of that shit.
Yeah.
The difference is that World War II in Japan, they knew that war was over. So the world, the U.S., had no problem sinking a bunch of money into rebuilding Japan. The problem with Gaza is you're going to sink a bunch of money into rebuilding Gaza, and then next year...
With Hamas still in charge.
Hamas is still in charge, and then next year this all happens again.
Yeah.
So why would anyone? There's no incentive for anyone to try.
Does Hamas feel like they still can win it, or just gonna resist till they're dead?
I mean, the problem with this one, which is different than the Ukraine one, is you're talking about ideology.
Yeah.
You're not talking about just like rational and a land grab and things like that. You're talking about these people think they're fighting on God's side.
Yeah.
Both of them.
So it's to the death.
Both of these people think they're doing it for their higher power.
Yeah.
That's way more dangerous than Putin just wanting, parts of Ukraine, in my opinion, because Putin's not an ideologue.
Well, you can't negotiate with that ideology.
No,
it's like
they're willing to die for it.
Yeah.
Which they might end up doing, but
and they'll do so.
Unfortunately, they're going to take a lot of people with them.
Yeah.
That's the real problem. Is this like they might be willing to die for it, but is everyone around you willing to die for it?
Doesn't matter to them, huh?
No. I did see something interesting about Jordan and about refugees. Um, they say that Jordan has the largest amount of refugees out of any other country in the world.
Yeah.
It's something like 11 million. Again, very misleading because you're talking about refugees that have been there for up to 50 years.
So why are they late?
They're not refugees. They're just Jordanians at that point.
Right.
But they still get classified as refugees.
That's interesting.
That's part of the narrative of.
And they're like have jobs and living life, or are they in a camp?
I would assume no. Well, I know that some still are.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that's in Jordan. That might have been like in Syria and Lebanon and shit like that. But like, I don't know, dude. Like that doesn't really like something. You know, when you smell something fishy, like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If somebody's lived somewhere for 50 years, they're just that.
50 years.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they're no longer.
Unless they are in a refugee camp for 50 years.
It's not 11 million people.
No.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I know. There may be a couple thousand here and there, and those may be new refugees,
right?
Like newer people. But dude, I can't remember what that shit was called when the first time everyone left Palestine during the first war, where they were worried that the Israelis were just going to like slaughter them if they stayed, or no, it was the other way around. The Israelis said you could stay, but they were like, no, we're not staying. And then they went to other places because the other countries that were attacking Israel said, we're going to win. And then when we win, you can go back. And then they never won.
Okay.
So I can't, there's a name for that, though. But
when did that happen?
I think that was after either the first or second Israeli-Palestinian. It was one of the ones where it wasn't the Palestinians who even attacked Israel. It was Jordan, Syria, like all of Egypt. It was all the countries around them.
Within our lifetime?
Yeah. Well, not ours, no.
No. Okay. So
I think it was in the 50s.
Yeah, yeah.
But that we've talked about this before. That's the whole thing with Israel. That is a weird thing. Is like it's the Palestinians versus the Israelis, but not really. Like every time Israel gets attacked, I mean, there's terrorism between those two, but every time Israel gets attacked, it's by all the surrounding countries. And they attack them thinking like they have such overwhelming, and then Israel beats the shit out of them.
Yeah.
And so like I said, a lot of those refugees they were told to leave Palestine and Israel because when we come back with the Syrian army and the Jordanian army and the fucking, I don't even remember who else was involved, but the Egyptian army, we're going to take over all of Israel and then you can have it all back. Well, then they never won. So there was nowhere for these people to go.
Yeah,
so now they're just stuck in these countries, apparently as refugees, which doesn't seem possible, honestly.
But, yeah, they need to be labeled differently.
Well, what about these people's kids? We're talking, 70 years ago? 3 generations down the road, possibly. Like,
yeah. And then
are those kids refugees or are they just Jordanians? I don't
probably
know.
Refugees.
I mean, but isn't that just a label?
Yeah, just the label is, yeah, but not for real.
Yeah,
but really.
in real life, they literally have lived in Jordan their whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's weird.
All right, well, this has been a good long one. You got anything else you want to talk about? Or?
I think that's it. We seemed like we went a while.
We did. We went a long while. But we had to. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
Strong and uninformed opinions. Jeff Gulino. We got some movie reviews coming out. Look at all the shorts. Like, share, subscribe, all that crap. We'll try to keep pumping these out. As like we had a lot of people. Literally, I had a lot of people hit me up and be like, "When's the next episode?"
Oh yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I was all like, "Wow, all right, this is interesting."
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I don't know about you, but just life.
Yeah.
Like I had to put my dog down. I had all kind. I was sick. You were sick. We were going to do this weeks ago, and literally we called each other the same morning. I'm all like, "I don't feel good." He's like, "I don't feel good."
It's going around bad this year.
Dude, it just fucking won't go away.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
My son's sick right now.
Did you get sick twice?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's weird about the flu season here in Arizona. You get sick, you feel better, and you're like, oh, I'm getting better and I'm good. And then all of a sudden it just comes back.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Everyone I know that got sick, same
I had
thing.
the stomach one, whatever that was. Remember that?
I had, yeah, it was weird, but I feel like it was
Forgot
all
what they
still the
called it.
same shit though.
Yeah,
Like it was just I got different symptoms.
yeah.
So it was weird. I don't know. They said it was flu, but I don't know. This is the first time since COVID I had anything with my lungs too.
I didn't really have that. I had the stomach one, and then just head, like sinus.
Mine started in my lungs, then moved up to my head.
But when I had COVID, it was all sinus. I
So
didn't have any lung.
COVID for me has always been weird, dude. Like I almost never have anything to do with my head or my lungs. Dude, I always have problems with my fucking guts.
Oh, really?
Dude,
With COVID?
my only consistent symptom of COVID is having the shits.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous,
I
dude.
didn't get
Like,
that, yeah.
well, I know it's on the list, but so is everything else.
Yeah,
And
everything's on the list.
Yeah. All right. You guys have a good week. We'll see you when we see you.
See ya.